So it's 2024, and this is my first book review of the year, and it's gonna be a little bit of a controversial one. So I've been reading this 1,000+ page book for the last 2 years, and I am ready to talk about it. It's got a little bit of everything in it. It's got romance, betrayal, conspiracy, action, thriller, mental health, self-help, non-fiction, history, a little bit of fantasy if you read things too literally, and even a little bit of a smut if you know how to read between the lines. Oh. Have you figured out what book I have been reading for the last 2 years? The Holy Bible.
Oh, what?
So let's get down to it. Did you just say there was smut in the Bible? No, the Bible is probably anti-smut. Well, then you're in for a treat. There's a lot of love affairs in the Bible, okay, and in fact it talks about sex quite a lot. And yes, there's prohibitions on it, mostly to do with sexual immorality, but it does actually have a lot of love affairs. And if you think there's no as much in the Bible, girlfriend, you need to read in between the lines, because right here on chapter 2 of the Book of Songs, their subtitle there talks to you about the bride and her lover delighting on each other. Okay, and if you want a little taste of how he writes about smut in the Bible, like an apple tree among the trees of the forest is my lover amongst the young men. I delight to sit in his shade, and his fruit is sweet to my taste.
Oh.
Reading between the lines, girlfriend. Okay, so I think I need to explain why am I reading the Bible? What the hell am I talking about it here? And why, right? Caveat, I am not a theologian, whatever the word is. I am not a specialist in the Bible. I am simply talking about this book as a book that I expend a substantial amount of time reading, and did a little bit of digging to better understand and the reasons why I read it and what I liked about it, what I didn't like about it, and whether or not I would recommend you to read it like I would do with any other book. So that's it. So in terms of characters, I started reading the Bible with the characters that I was basically taught to admire when I was a kid, right? So I started reading it with King David, Solomon, Moses, Apostle Paul in my mind as the main characters and the characters that I needed to be inspired by. And I finished reading the Bible with a completely different set of characters that I actually like to read about. So, King David remained the same. Very interesting because the Book of Psalms, for example, is many gospel songs are inspired in the Book of Psalms, and you look at it on the surface and think, yeah, it's a book about songs, that he wrote to praise God. But actually, the Book of Psalms describes David struggling with PTSD because David was a soldier. He was a general in the army, and he went to battle, and he struggled with PTSD for the rest of his life. And you see that in the book of Ecclesiastes, for example, it's actually Solomon, who's considered to be the wisest man in the Bible, having a middle life crisis and losing his faith. Quite like severely losing his faith. So, like, there was all these little details of those characters that I knew, that I thought I knew, and then a complete new side of them, a more humane side, a human element came into play with me reading this as an adult. And I ended up reading the Bible. By the end of the Bible, the characters that I was in love with was actually Joshua, Daniel, David, and to my surprise, Apostle Paul, who I used to really veneer in terms of what he did for the gospel and the churches. I actually came to dislike quite a lot, because despite his ministry being supported by several wealthy women, he had a very chauvinistic view of women in the church. And not only that, but I don't actually think he liked women that much. So there's all this kind of elements that has come to light for me about these characters in the Bible, and it was fascinating. It was fascinating to kind of compare that to my childhood understanding or my childhood memories of those stories and those characters. So there was honestly, there's just a little bit of everything in the Bible, so I'm sure um, a psychologist could have a field trip of what is going on here in terms of character and character development. And finally, would I recommend you to read this book? And how would I score this book? I'll be honest, and I'll say that it was a little bit of a head spinner for me. I came into it with very childish expectations, things that have been sort of filtered down to me from my upbringing in church, from my family, and some of the things that I read in there made me curious, made me dubious, made me, go, what the hell is this? Um, so it was a little bit of a head spinner for me, and I've got a lot of research to do past just reading it, to kind of really understand it better, and or at least understand it to the level that I wanted to understand it. And I don't think I ever will understand it fully. Some things are just a mystery, and that's what it is. But I would recommend you to read it because there is a lot of inspirational things on it. There's some beautiful passages about how to treat each other. And the one thing I took away from reading the Bible, apart from my head scrambling and head scratching, was that Christianity is actually a lot more challenging than we take it to be in today's society. Like the early church would have been considered a cult by today's measures and standards, by our selfish capitalist culture of today. And there is a lot about loving, about caring for one another, about loving your neighbor like you love yourself. The greatest commandment is love, and it is about showing mercy and showing grace. It just made me realize that when Jesus as a character was a lot more radical than we take him to be, that when he came, he really challenged the cultural norms, he really challenged the cultural beliefs of the time, capitalism of the time, and really challenged us to be better people. And it's quite curious that somebody actually has to tell us that to be better people. That this is what scratched my head the most. When you read the Ten Commandments and the Sermon on the Mount, is all common sense, but it's shocking that somebody has to say that to us, like he's teaching or lecturing us on how to live. Like his. But yes, the short of it is, should you read it? Yes, it would enlighten you. Particular books more than others within the Bible, but read everything, test everything, take what is good. And when you take what is good, take what is noble, what is right, what is pure, what is lovely with you. Don't take the hate, don't take the wars, don't take the the conflicts, because you could stand on this and argue with anyone, but really this isn't what the book is all about. And the biggest commandment on it, and the greatest commission according to Jesus himself, is to love one another like you love yourself. It is to love. So yes, probably gonna scramble your brain, but has some lovely messaging on it, and it's a shame that somebody actually has to tell us to behave better.